The cost of government's plan to convert Andrews factory into a multi-purpose facility may have to be revised. It could be more or less depending on what investors say when they visit in a few days. That's according to Chairman of the Barbados Cane Industry Corporation, Dr. Atlee Brathwaite.
Dr. Brathwaite confirmed that representatives of the Marubeni Corporation, which is funding the project, and engineers from Bosch Consultants who are responsible for design are expected to be here sometime this month. Mr. Brathwaite said both companies will be visiting the factory to finalize the financial and environmental due diligence necessary for sign-off on the project.
These visits are really, in effect, to finalize the financial arrangements by the Japanese banks, JBIC, and the other related financial institutions to the project off the ground. But generally speaking, I would say satisfactory progress is being made in terms of project activities.
He said there will also be a review of the type of building that will be constructed, which will impact on the final cost. Initial reports put the figure at over $200 million to transform the existing sugar sector into a sugarcane and renewable energy industry in 2 phases, starting with a temporary upgrade of the transition factory at Portville and the second phase of refurbishing Andrews. Dale Ford for CBC News.
Despite what's being said, the Democratic Labour Party has a plan for Barbados, and according to Prime Minister Fendel Stewart, it will be followed. The Prime Minister was addressing party supporters at the Allen School in St. Andrew last night. He says a major part of the recovery plan is restoring the tourism industry by diversifying Barbados' source markets.
We have a direct flight from Brazil to Barbados, and we're going to try to get into Panama and to Latin America so we can attract people from there as well. I don't have to depend so wholly on our traditional trading partners. We established a diplomatic embassy in Beijing, in China. China has a population of over 1 billion people. China has been opening up its economy. Some of China's millionaires and billionaires are now traveling. We are in the process of negotiating an air services agreement with China, and we hope that we can get somehow some of the rich Chinese who travel around the place to come here and spend some of the money they're spending.
Prime Minister Stewart is confident Barbados will be returned to a path of growth, although he admits it won't happen overnight.
The foundations for a return to growth have been laid, and I am confident that we will get there. We need to streamline government operations, and we are doing that, where statutory boards and so on are performing functions that overlap with other statutory boards and inefficiencies are in the system. We're dealing with that. We are making sure that people who leave home on mornings to go to work in the public service come and do an honest day's work for an honest day's pay.
Government's decision to lay off public servants did not come easy. This from Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism, Senator Irene Sandiford Garner. She too was addressing the DLP meeting in St. Andrew, where she said the hallmark of a good leader is to know when there has to be a change in course. Senator Sandiford Garner has acknowledged the layoffs were not initially part of the plan, but a government also always has to be realistic, practical, and open.
Sometimes you do have to change course. So when people say, when I say you ain't laying off nobody, because that's what you hear. At that time, the prospect did not seem real. There was no real prospect of us laying off anyone. But circumstances changed, and changed drastically. And any good leader recognizing the prospects of a country like this falling into the hands of the IMF, looking at the prospects probably of devaluation, we had to make some tough decisions.
Opposition leader Mia Mottley has issued Prime Minister Frendel Stuart with an ultimatum. He has 7 days to remove Chris Sinclair as Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs. Ms. Mottley made it clear that in order for Barbados to grow, the Minister of Finance must go. Her comments came as she addressed the latest People's Assembly of the Barbados Labour Party at the Ellerslie Secondary School last evening. There, she revealed what's in store if the week passes and Minister Sinclair is not removed.
If by next Sunday, Chris Sinclair is still the Minister of Finance, then our focus is now for this economy to go. Then Frendel too must go. He has 1 week to move Chris Sinclair as Minister of Finance. 1 week.
Ms. Mottley says today was a key date in Barbados history as a nation, as the Article 4 report of the International Monetary Fund was to go before the Executive Board of the lending institution. She wants that report to be released, saying it will tell Barbados everything it needs to know about the government.
I have no doubt that report yet again will say to Frendel Stuart and Chris Sinclair that Barbados is in a very precarious position, and that while the government may be attempting to start something, that the road that the government has to travel and the policies that the government has to implement are so many more that we continue to be in a situation that causes them and everybody who does business with us grave, grave concern.
Meanwhile, BLP candidate for St. Michael West Central, Ian Gooding-Edgell, accused the DLP of misleading the people of Barbados.
Here is, in 2014, we are being faced with a situation where the Democratic Labour Party can come to you and say to 3,000 plus workers that you have to go home. In the election campaign of 2013, they maligned the Barbados Labour Party, and they tried to give the impression that it was the Barbados Labour Party that was meant to be sending home thousands of public workers.
Barbados remains vigilant following reports from the U.S. Embassy in Guyana about reported threats relating to regional airline CAL's flights from the South American country to the United States. Corporate communications specialist with the Grantley Adams International Airport, Keith Goddard, tells CBC News airport officials are aware of the threats and they're continuing with their security checks. The U.S. Embassy posted a statement on its website on Sunday saying that the threats were for flights departing today. As a result, it urged Americans to avoid the Trinidad and Tobago-based Caribbean Airlines. Head of Corporate Communications at CAL, Clint Williams, says the airline is aware of the threat and has increased security around CAL aircraft while on the ground in Guyana. He says there is no indication, however, that Americans adhere to the warning to avoid flying with the airline.
Without knowing the nationalities of those who flew or did not fly today, I can say that on the flights, we did not see a particular spike in cancellations. There are always some cancellations on any flight for various reasons. Someone may have not felt well, or they may have had a need to stay longer or return earlier or whatever. But we haven't seen a spike in cancellations, and we believe that that reflects in many ways the confidence people have in the airline to put in place the necessary security.
And over in Guyana, international flights departed under heavier than normal security. Police and soldiers joined regular airport security at the Chedijagan International Airport to conduct security screenings of all travelers. The man held by police in connection with last year's killing of 53-year-old Marita Doreen Ford has been charged. 50-year-old Terry Cassius Seal of Groves St. George was charged with Ford's murder along with 1 count of arson. Both incidents are suspected to have been committed between October 30th and 31st last year. Ford's body was discovered at her Fisher Pond St. Thomas home by neighbors around 3 in the morning. Neighbors recalled noticing smoke coming from Ford's house. They say they broke down the door out of concern that she may have been trapped inside only to find her lifeless body on the floor. Seal appeared in the District A Magistrates Court. He was remanded until Wednesday, when he is expected to reappear at the District D Magistrates Court. Well, coming up after the break, the proposed drug treatment court, a life changer.
I sent a text to the economic program, and then I got a call saying that I was a winner. This system is beautiful. For baths, it is excellent. I want to thank SunPower for this wonderful gift and giving back to the community. And I want to say again, thanks very much to Economics and SunPower, and I encourage everyone to watch the show. You too can be a winner.
Right from its start over 80 years ago, Goddard Enterprises made innovation and diversification its own proud tradition. Today's Goddard Enterprises Limited is one of the Caribbean's foremost and diversified multinational corporations, comprising more than 50 companies in over 20 countries. Goddard Enterprises Limited is catering, manufacturing, hospitality and service business, financial, and marketing and distribution of world-famous brands. Goddard Enterprises, the tradition of innovation and service since 1921.
What should Caribbean nations be doing to strengthen regional monetary systems and prevent future shocks? Hear the answer from one of the world's leading economists, C. Fred Bergston, Distinguished Visiting Fellow of the Peterson Institute for International Economics. He's our special guest in the first edition of the Caribbean Economic Forum, hosted by the Central Bank of Barbados. Join us on Wednesday, 19th February at 8 p.m. when I'll pose questions to this highly respected world economist. Pose your own questions via email and social media. This is a debate too important to our future to miss.
The proposed drug treatment court that's set to get going in May will save thousands of dollars for Barbados while giving drug offenders a second chance to rehabilitate their lives. This assertion from Chairman of the Court's Steering Committee, High Court Judge Mr. Justice Randall Worrell, who says too many young men are being lost to drugs and the criminal justice system in Barbados. Mr. Justice Worrell says the idea is to help the offender instead of incarcerating him. He made the comments on CBC's News and Current Affairs program, The People's Business, which last night examined the issue of the drug treatment court.
It is a way of trying to get away from the traditional way of dealing with these persons by way of sanctions of imprisonment or fines. More so imprisonment, trying to get away and take them away from imprisonment and actually treating their problem. Taking them, I would say, partially out of the criminal justice system and treating it somewhat as a public health approach, using a public health approach. So you have actually treatment. That's why they're called drug treatment courts. The emphasis really is on treating the person and not incarceration, trying to help that person. That is basically what it is about.
Queen's Counsel Andrew Pilgrim says the move towards the drug treatment court is designed to help people suffering with healthcare problems that are addicted to drugs. He says in this regard, the offender is treated over a particular time frame and prepared for reintegration into society.
If you have an offender who comes before the court in January and then he finds himself there for, say, 5 offenses of theft or burglary or something like that, he's sentenced to 18 months in prison. He comes back 18 months later, back burgling again, and you realize that he's doing these burglaries constantly just because he's trying to fuel his habit, he's trying to feed his habit. And if we just keep following the traditional means of sentencing, found guilty, sentence, 6 months, 18 months, and that person is just coming back all the time, we're making things worse for the society, worse for the individual, so no one is winning. But with the drug treatment court, everyone can win.
OAS representative to Barbados, Francis McBarnett, says the court is an alternative to imprisonment, noting that it has worked well so far in the Caribbean. He says the OAS is fully backing the project, noting that Jamaica started with a pilot like Barbados and now has 5 courts.
Trinidad started in what, 2011?
Yes.
And they have 3 courts, and they're contemplating a juvenile branch. So It can work. It can work. One of the attractions of the model is that you don't need to adapt or change your legal system or your judiciary to incorporate it. And this is an attraction because it's working in both common law and civil law jurisdictions. So it's something that we are hoping that we can try here in Barbados, and hopefully we can take it somewhere.
Stagnant productivity across the private and public sectors has been blamed on trade unions and employers. The accusation has been leveled by former head of the Barbados Employers Confederation, Ed Bushell. He says productivity is put on the back burner in times of plenty, rearing its head in times of economic crisis. Mr. Bushell, who was speaking last evening at a town hall meeting at the Princess Margaret Secondary School addressing productivity in Barbados, said managers have to take responsibility for improving productivity. Meanwhile, Labour Minister Dr. Esther Bayer-Suku says her ministry wants empirical data to explain the true challenge facing productivity. A giant step is being taken towards ensuring food security in Barbados. It's being done through the formation of a Centre for Food Security and Entrepreneurship at the University of the West Indies. A memorandum of understanding was signed earlier today in support of the centre. Its creation was spearheaded by former chairman of the National Agriculture Commission and now Ambassador-designate to China, Dr. Chelston Brathwaite. The centre is expected to assist in reducing the island's high food import bill. Principal and Pro-Vice-Chancellor of UWI Cave Hill, Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, says the centre will be located on 30 acres of land donated by the Edgell family at Duke's Plantation in St. Thomas.
We have taken that land in good faith with the intention of developing a research centre, teaching and learning that will bridge academia with the agri-industries, and to participate as a university in the entrepreneurial aspect of this development. This is a very, very important development for this university. The philanthropy of the Edgell family is outstanding, and we celebrate them this morning for creating this opening.
Sir Hilary also pledged the campus support to rebuilding the agriculture sector.
We have to stay with our agriculture. It is our ancestral legacy. We stay with it, but we modernize it. We apply all of the appropriate technologies to it, as we have always done. And we need, certainly in this university, to produce graduates who are looking for career opportunities in agriculture. There are spaces available. We have the Faculty of Science and Technology committed now to developing an educational approach to agriculture that will make it attractive to a new generation.
The Ministry of Tourism is embarking on several initiatives aimed at improving the island's tourism product and also allowing it to take advantage of the cultural tourism niche. This was revealed by Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism, Shelley Carrington, as she delivered remarks last evening at the opening ceremony of the 38th Whole Town Festival. One of the new initiatives includes the development of a tourism action plan for Bridgetown and the historic Garrison area.
At present, the Ministry of Tourism is hard at work on the implementation and management of a tourism action plan for historic Bridgetown and its garrison. This tourism action plan will facilitate the ministry's oversight and guidance as it relates to the development of sustainable tourism initiatives and the effective marketing efforts. The overarching goals in this regard are the effective management of the World Heritage property and the facilitation of the development of authentic site interpretation of activities.
The Permanent Secretary also revealed that there is more in store for Speightstown.
During the upcoming financial year, the Barbados Carolina Committee will facilitate the implementation of a public relations program for Speightstown that will include the installing of interpretive signage. All these initiatives are intended to highlight and preserve the heritage and culture of Barbadians and at the same time position Barbados to effectively target the ever-growing cultural heritage tourism market niche.
Well, the Transport Board is mourning the death of one of its long-standing employees and member of Barbados Workers Union Executive Council, Byron Jackman. He died suddenly this morning at his mother's home in St. Barnabas after complaining of feeling unwell. The 38-year veteran had worked last night as an operations supervisor at Fairchild Street. Mr. Jackman started out as a conductor at the board back in 1976. Marketing and Communications Officer Linda Holder described him as a fountain of information and a strong advocate of employees' rights within the institution. A family member told CBC News they are coping as best as they can with their sudden loss. BWU Senior Assistant General Secretary Orlando Gabby Scott recalls that Jackman was very active in the union.
It has been a trauma for the Barbados Workers Union because Byron was effervescent, bubbling, and he served on all of the important committees of the Barbados Workers Union. As I said, he was a senior vice president. He was the chairman of the media committee, general purposes committee, first chairman of the youth group. He has been all over the union. Byron has made a significant contribution to labor movement in Barbados.
BWU Treasurer Washbrook Bain says the death of the late comrade has affected him tremendously.
I got the news about 8:15 this morning, and I haven't been myself since then. Byron was a great friend. He was actually the life of this organization, as you heard Comrade Gabby Scott say just now, the number of committees that he served on. He was instrumental, he was a mover. His credit union work was exemplary. Byron.